March was supposed to be normal. Nothing dramatic. Nothing life-changing. Just a regular month where your paycheck comes in. The bills go out. You try to act like a functional adult, and maybe you make one or two decent decisions before the weekend undoes your progress. Instead, March got expensive. The car needed work. Your utilities were higher than expected. Somebody had a birthday. Work got stressful, which somehow turned food delivery into a medically necessary expense. Then you looked up and realized the month was not a little off. It was one of those months where everything felt slightly more expensive, slightly more annoying, and somehow timed itself with the precision of a coordinated attack. So you told yourself what almost everyone tells themselves in that situation. It's fine. I'll recover next month. That sounds harmless. Mature even. Temporary setback. Quick reset. Fresh start in April. But then April arrives carrying the leftover damage from March. The credit card balance is still there. The cash cushion is lower. You are already behind before the new month has even had the chance to disappoint you in its own special way. Now every normal expense lands on a weaker version of your finances. Then one more thing goes wrong, or one more social plan shows up, or one more bill hits a little harder than it should, and suddenly this is no longer about one bad month. Now you are paying the recovery cost. That is what I want to talk about today. Because one of the biggest reasons people feel like they are always behind is not that they are making giant financial mistakes over and over again. It is that the modern financial life is extremely bad at recovering from disruption. One expensive month does not just cost what it costs in the moment. It changes the shape of the months after it. It weakens your buffer, tightens your margin, and forces future money to solve old problems before it gets to build anything new. I'm Nick, and today we are going to talk about why bad months are more expensive than they look, how the hidden cost of recovery keeps people financially stuck, and why the people who seem to bounce back from setbacks are not always earning more. A lot of the time, they simply built a life that can absorb a hit without letting it spread. Why one bad month is rarely just one month here is the part people miss. Financial damage is not always contained to the month where it happens. That is the fantasy. Something goes wrong. You deal with it. Life moves on. But that is not how money works when your margins are already thin. Let's say your normal monthly life is already pretty tight. Rent is fixed. Car payment is fixed. Insurance is fixed. Groceries are somehow a part-time hostage situation. There is not a ton of extra room, but technically the machine functions. Then a bad month hits. Maybe it is $1,200 in surprise car repairs. Maybe it is travel for a family situation. Maybe it is just one of those ugly combinations where three medium-sized problems all arrive in the same 30-day window and start acting like they know each other. If you have plenty of cushion, the month is annoying. You absorb it, maybe shift some money around, maybe postpone something optional, and then you move on. If you do not have cushion, that same month starts leaking into the future almost immediately. You put some of it on a credit card. You pull from savings you were not supposed to touch. You skip investing. You push a bill into next month. You tell yourself the goal is to survive the month and then get serious afterward. That survival response makes sense. It is not irrational, but it creates something people rarely calculate, which is the cost of recovery. Not the cost of the emergency itself. The cost of how long the aftershock keeps distorting your finances. The timeline people imagine versus the one that actually happens. People think recovery looks like this: bad month, tight month, reset, back to normal. What it often looks like instead is this: bad month, then a weaker month because savings are lower, then an expensive month because you are still carrying the old balance, then a stressed month because now you are making current decisions under leftover pressure. Then another compromised month because the emergency fund has not been rebuilt, the card has not been cleared, and the investing contribution got quietly suspended just until things settle. That is not one bad month. That is a financial echo. And the echo can last 6 months, 9 months, sometimes a year, even when the original problem itself was relatively ordinary. This is why two people can face the same $1,500 setback and end up telling very different stories about it. One says, "That was annoying." The other says, "I feel like I've been trying to recover ever since." Those are not personality differences. Those are structure differences. A case study that explains almost everything. Imagine two people, both making $68,000 a year. Same city, same rough cost of living, same level of general competence. Neither of them is a financial genius. Neither is setting their paycheck on fire for content. Person A has $7,000 in emergency savings, no credit card balance, low fixed expenses relative to income, and automatic investing that is meaningful but not aggressive. Person B has $800 in savings, a $2,400 credit card balance, higher fixed monthly costs, and no real margin once the basics are covered. Now both of them get hit with the same bad month, a $1,600 car repair and a $600 medical bill. Total damage, $2,200. Person A uses cash, adjusts one or two categories, and replaces the emergency fund over the next couple of months. The bad month stays bad, but it stays local. Person B puts part of it on a card, empties the little savings they had, skips investing, delays another bill, and spends the next 3 months trying to stabilize. Because the card balance grows, their next paycheck is already doing repair work before it gets to handle current life. By the time they are back on track, they have also absorbed interest, late fees, extra stress spending, and the opportunity cost of months without saving or investing. The original $2,200 problem might end up costing more like $3,100 or $3,400 in real life when you include the recovery period. Same bad month, completely different total price. That difference is one of the hidden engines of financial inequality, and almost nobody talks about it this way. Why recovery is so expensive psychologically. The recovery cost is not just mathematical. It is psychological. When you are recovering from a bad month, your brain is not operating in its best mode. It is operating in cleanup mode. Cleanup mode is bad at long-term thinking. It is bad at patience. It is bad at restraint. It is bad at subtle financial decision-making. It turns everything into tree-off. You stop asking, what is the smartest move over time, and start asking, how do I make this week stop being so aggressive? That shift matters. Because the months after a setback are exactly when people are most likely to. Asterisk avoid checking accounts. Asterisk skip investing contributions. Asterisk make convenience purchases because bandwidth is gone. Asterisk delay small repairs. Asterisk rationalize more credit use. Asterisk or retreat into weird little emotional spending habits because they are exhausted from being responsible. That is the cruel part. Recovery is when discipline is needed most, and it is also when discipline feels hardest to access. So the money damage gets help from psychology. Now the problem is not just that the month was expensive. The month trained the next month to be weaker. The 4 ways a bad month keeps charging you afterward. There are 4 main ways a bad month keeps taking money after the month itself is over. 1. It empties your buffer. This is the most obvious one. Once savings drop, every normal expense starts landing in a more fragile environment. Groceries are no longer groceries. They are groceries plus the knowledge that if one more thing goes wrong, there is nowhere soft for it to land. That changes how you feel all month. It also changes how quickly the next problem becomes expensive. 2. It creates debt drag. If any part of the bad month goes on a card, the month now has a subscription model. You are paying for old stress with new income. Interest means recovery is not neutral. Delay has a price. And because those balances tend to live in the background, people underestimate how much of future cash flow is being quietly recruited to solve past life. 3. It interrupts momentum. This one gets overlooked a lot. A lot of financial progress comes from consistency, not heroics. Saving every month, investing every month, paying down debt every month, building trust with yourself every month. A bad month interrupts that rhythm, and restarting a habit is usually harder than maintaining it. So people do not just lose one contribution. They often lose the pattern for several months because the system got knocked out of motion. It makes the next compromise easier. After one bad month, the standards soften. You are more likely to say, I'll fix it next month. More likely to carry the balance a little longer. More likely to postpone the transfer. More likely to use food, convenience, or little purchases to survive the stress of recovery. That is how one expensive month quietly recruits other expensive behaviors. Why some people recover fast and others never quite do. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable because people love to frame recovery as discipline. If they were serious, they'd just get back on track. Maybe. Sometimes discipline matters. But structure matters more than most people want to admit. Recovery speed depends heavily on how much cash margin you had before the hit, how high your fixed costs are, whether debt is already involved, how stable your income is, and whether your life is designed to absorb bad months without needing a personality transplant afterward. That last one matters more than it sounds. Some people build financial systems that only work when nothing goes wrong. That is not a strong system. That is a lucky month in spreadsheet form. A strong financial life is not one that looks efficient in a perfect month. It is one that can take a punch without turning April into a hostage situation because March got weird. The recovery cost of lifestyle creep. Now let's add something even more annoying. As people earn more, they often increase their cost structure in ways that make bad months harder to recover from, not easier. Bigger rent, newer car, more subscriptions, more finance comfort, more baseline lifestyle. So even though their income goes up, their ability to recover from setbacks does not improve as much as it should. Sometimes it barely improves at all. That is how you get people making objectively decent money who still feel like one inconvenient month knocks them sideways. They did not buy resilience. They bought nicer recurring obligations. And recurring obligations are very bad at helping you recover. They are excellent at showing up again next month asking if you have learned anything. This is why "I will catch up later" fails so often. When people fall behind after a bad month, they almost always imagine recovery as a future sprint. "I will catch up next month. I will invest double later. I will rebuild the emergency fund once things calm down. I will pay extra on the card when I get my bonus. I will get back to the plan after this weird stretch." The problem is that recovery rarely happens through one heroic act. It happens through many boring months of non-dramatic consistency. And those boring months are harder to produce when the previous setback already weakened your system. This is why people stay in financial recovery mode for so long. They are waiting for one strong month to save them, when what they really need is a structure that does not collapse every time life behaves like life. What recovery actually needs. So what helps? Not shame. Shame is useless here. What helps is designing a financial life that reduces the spread of damage. That starts with a better question. Instead of asking, "How do I survive bad months?" ask, "How do I stop bad months from infecting the next 3? That shift leads to better priorities. Priority 1. Build an ugly, boring buffer. Not a beautiful goal. Not an Instagram milestone. Just enough cash that one medium problem does not immediately become a future income problem. The first layer of savings is not there to make you wealthy. It is there to keep March from invoicing April. Priority 2. Reduce fixed costs where you realistically can. Because recovery is much easier when your monthly baseline is not already maxed out. Every dollar of breathing room matters more after a bad month than during a normal one. A person with lower fixed costs gets to recover with dignity. A person with high fixed costs often recovers through stress, delay, and improvisation. Priority 3. Kill expensive debt before it multiplies recovery time. High-interest debt is not just expensive. It is slow poison for momentum. It ensures one rough season hangs around long enough to interfere with the next one. Priority 4. Automate the good behavior before the bad month arrives. Because after the bad month, you are tired, reactive, and more likely to make cleanup decisions instead of good long-term ones. The smart move is to build defaults while your brain is calm, not while you are standing in the financial equivalent of smoke. A more useful definition of progress. A lot of people define financial progress as moving upward. More savings, more investing, more net worth, better income, bigger goals. That is part of it. But there is another definition that matters just as much. Progress is also reducing how long it takes you to recover from disruption. If a bad month used to set you back for 6 months, and now it only sets you back for 6 weeks, that is progress. If a car repair used to go on a card, and now it comes out of cash, that is progress. If an ugly month no longer kills your investing habit, that is progress. If you can take a hit without immediately entering a chain reaction of fees, delay, and stress, that is progress. In other words, resilience is not a side benefit of financial health. It is one of the clearest signs of it. The part that should stay with you. A lot of people think they are bad with money because they cannot seem to get traction. But sometimes the issue is not that they keep making obvious mistakes. The issue is that the system they are living inside makes recovery too expensive. Every bad month is followed by repair work. Every repair phase weakens the next month. Every weakened month makes new progress harder. And eventually the person starts feeling like they are permanently behind, when what they really are is repeatedly taxed by the afterlife of old setbacks. That is what the recovery cost does. It turns one hard month into a quarter, sometimes into a year. And if you want your financial life to feel less fragile, the goal is not just to avoid mistakes. The goal is to shorten the distance between getting hit and becoming stable again. Because the real difference between "I'm always behind" and "I'm okay" is often not income alone. It is how much damage a bad month is allowed to carry into the next one. That's it for this one. If this changed the way you think about why money stress can linger long after the original problem is over, hit subscribe and share this with someone who is not just paying for a bad month. They are still paying for its sequel.